Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 451 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not only asking you to agree with me, I'm asking you to hear me out. After most weeks of football, whether we talk about college football, whether we talk about the NFL, people like to have segments talking about overreaction or underreaction. You know, while each game is its own entity, it does or could be looked at or put on a bigger spectrum than it should be. And I'm not going to talk about the entire week one of college football that we saw. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about a few games that I feel needs the attention that I'm going to give it. What do we know about college football? Usually, in the opening weeks or opening week, let's say week one, what a team likes to do, especially a top-ranked team, a higher-ranked team, they like to schedule games that are quote-unquote gimmies, quote-unquote games that they shouldn't lose. This is why you see Tennessee go up against Chattanooga, which is why you see Texas going up against Colorado State. They don't, usually, these top-ranked schools don't want a necessarily extremely tough challenge their first week. You want your players to get organized. You want your players to get integrated with how this is going to go for the rest of the season. Obviously, there are some competitors that's tougher than others, but you want to come on slowly, which is why you usually see week one blowouts like Iowa beat Iowa State, Illinois State 40-0. Like I said, Tennessee beat Chattanooga 69-3. You usually see those type of schedules and those type of results week one because they're usually the competition isn't the same. Now there are some, and we'll talk about a couple of them, but there are some that obviously you don't get that luxury. But what I want to focus this episode and where I want to start this at is Florida State. Because you see, Florida State did exactly what everyone usually does. You usually want to come out the gate kind of with a soft landing. You don't want to go too difficult. And Florida State thought they did that. They thought they did that in Dublin, Ireland when they went up against Georgia Tech. And seeing as though they've played two games now because they played in week 0 and week 1, they did that. They thought they did that against Bill O'Brien and Boston College. Yet, it didn't go anywhere close to what I'm sure Florida State, what I'm sure the people that do the rankings, the AP poll, I'm sure it did not go anything like they thought it would go. Because as we sit here today, on this Wednesday, Florida State, who came into the season ranked 10th, is now 0-2 against two teams that are not ranked. So, while we're going to talk about some overreaction and underreaction, this situation isn't necessarily that, because I believe the time for overreaction is over. I said that there are going to be teams to make the college football playoffs because it expanded from 4 to 12. There's going to be teams that have 1, 2, maybe even 3 losses on the season, make it to the college football playoffs. That is how stiff the competition is going to be. And I think when you see all the teams have to play each other, it's going to be tough leaving out some teams that have 2 or 3 losses, but they're the 2 or 3 losses that they have going against teams that are also in the college football playoffs. So I said that it's not necessarily an overreaction if a team has one or two losses, because they still have a path to make it into the college football playoffs. I can essentially say there is no shot, in my opinion, of Florida State now making it into the college football playoffs. Obviously, I could be wrong. This is sort of a hyperbolic thought that I got, that I've compiled after the two. See, losing to Georgia Tech, the first game in Ireland, isn't terrible. It's not good, but isn't terrible. Especially when you see what some of your fellow ACC teams have done, which we'll talk about shortly. But losing to Boston College and Georgia Tech and losing to Boston College at home and necessarily not looking too competitive in either one. There's too many good teams this year to allow yourself to lose to a team. And this is no offense to a Georgia Tech. This is no offense to a Boston College. But when we talk about in the AP poll's eyes, when we talk about the eyes of the fans that would rank these colleges, everyone would pretty much, before the games started, everyone would rank Florida State above Boston College and Georgia Tech. So the fact that you essentially got manhandled for 2 games, there's no way. I could be wrong, obviously, but I don't think there's any way that Florida State now makes it to the college football playoffs, which essentially means that their season is pretty much over. Now, yeah, I think they'll probably be good enough for a bowl game, but yeah. But let's talk about Florida State for a second. Florida State is the perfect example to what happens when things don't go according to plan. When is it time to pivot? I'm looking at DJU. I'm not gonna try Ungale. DJ Ungale. I think I said your name wrong, but I apologize if I did. But I'm looking at DJ Ungale. He is the main reason why Florida State is currently 0-2. Not the only reason. Their defense has given up almost 250 yards both games on the ground. Like, they can't stop a nosebleed when we talk about running the ball. A team that rests their laurels on how good their defense was last year has been gashed these first 2 games. Now, you can also say it's probably because they're on the field a lot, seeing as though the offense hasn't really produced anything. But the facts still remain, Florida State's defense has been getting killed on the ground. But I'm looking at DJ Ungale. At some point, and I'm wondering if and when, or when, because I don't know if it will, but if or when, Florida State will have to do the pivot. I understand that DJ was one of the highest ranked transfers to hit, or the available players to hit the transfer portal. But it didn't work in Clemson. It didn't work in Oregon State or Oklahoma State. I think Oregon State. and it hasn't worked here. Or for the first two games, it hasn't worked here. He looks slow, not like running, but he looks like he's unable to quickly find his reads. He overthrows wide open receivers. It doesn't seem like he grasps how to, at least in this system, how to go off script. And he looks overwhelmed. Which is why you see Florida State have absolutely no cohesion on the offensive side of the ball. They look bad. For a team that spent this entire offseason loathing over the fact that they did not make the college football playoffs last year and vow to avenge and leave no doubt, quote, that they deserve to be there. That spent the whole offseason suing the ACC for essentially not allowing them to go to a tougher conference when they're struggling with the conference that they're in. For a team that had so much promise, there was multiple people that had Florida State, not just the best team in the ACC, not just a lock for the college football playoffs. There's people that essentially had Florida State winning the national championship. Oh, 0-2 looks much different when you talk about the opponent. For example, if Florida State would have lost to, let's say, Georgia and Oklahoma, and it was close games, that wouldn't be that big of a deal because you're going against top-ranked teams. You're going against teams that can very well find themselves as the last two teams standing. No, nobody bats and it's like, damn, it sucks. But nobody has this doom and gloom feeling for a team that loses to Georgia and Alabama. And no offense to them, but Boston College and Georgia Tech is not it's not Georgia and Alabama. And respect and understandably so, going into the season, Florida State was looked at as a Georgia, for a lot of people, Georgia and Alabama. And now as you look today, there's not a lot right, or there's not a lot going good for Florida State right now. And you could call it an overreaction. I don't know. But I will say this. It's going to take a Herculean effort and a lot of help from other teams to essentially get Florida State into that college football playoffs. And it's unfortunate that in my opinion, the biggest reason why they're 0-2 is their quote-unquote star quarterback that they brought on. He has been horrible. And the fact that this is his third team, yeah, man. I don't think Norvell is a bad coach. And I think that he said all the right things after the Boston College loss, pretty much putting it on himself, saying that he and his coaching staff need to be better. Everything you say as a coach. But we know the biggest reason why they lost is because their quarterback has not lived up to snuff these past two games. And unless he makes a tragic or a terrific turn, which he hasn't done again. You know what it is? It's kind of like, you know the saying, when somebody shows you who they really are, believe them. I think a lot of people was attaching the high school rank, the 5-star recruit and the glimpse of promise that DJU showed in Clemson and showed at Oregon State. But they like to overlook the issues and why Clemson wasn't the greatest, especially offensively, or why, and he got benched, by the way, or why Oregon State kind of fell off the map last year with him, or why he even entered the transfer portal twice. I'm not going to say it's all doom and gloom, even though it feels that way for Florida State. But what I will say is, you can't just lose to two teams that you are projected to win handedly and think that it's going to be a cakewalk to the college football playoffs. I don't see it. Which means that this could very well be the second straight year where you guys were projected to be there, but towards the end of the season, on the outside looking in. We'll see, man. But let's move forward to another game that I would like to talk about. And that is the Georgia and against Alabama game. Or Georgia against Clemson, I'm sorry. Georgia against Clemson. Going into it, both were highly ranked. Georgia number 1, I believe Clemson was 14, I think. Kind of like what I said with DJU and Florida State. At some point, there are times when you don't feel like you have to pivot. There are times when you don't feel like you should pivot. And there will be certain situations, certain people, certain teams that prove to you, okay, yeah, I think it's obviously something that I'm doing is not working. A lot of people jumped into my mentions. A lot of people jumped into my comments, whether on TikTok, whether on YouTube. If you're not following me, link in the description below, follow me. But they jumped into my mentions because I said that Clemson was going to find themselves in the college football playoffs for them to essentially, lose 34-3 to the top ranked team in Georgia. So now you got people that said, "Oh, this is the team that you have in the college football play. Ain't no way they're making the college football playoffs. Look. I think this game brought on a bit of an overreaction. And hear me out. I think the overreaction comes when we talk about Clemson in a sense of, I think Clemson is still going to be a very good team. I think that Clemson is still going, especially when you see what we saw from Florida State, I think Clemson is still going to find themselves at least competing for a college football playoff spot, and I think that they're going to make it. I think Clemson still has everything in front of them. I think what people heard me say was Clemson is going to be a dominant team, and I don't feel that way. In fact, the reason why I don't feel that way is kind of the reasoning for this topic being where it is in the show. There's a reason why Dabo gets so much flack for his refusal to integrate the transfer portal. You saw the team that has embraced new age football going against a team that has embraced traditional style football methods. And you saw what happened. I'm not saying that you can't find talent in recruiting. I'm not saying you can't breed talent. I think that Clemson is a great place for that. And we've seen that on several occasions. I just think you're always going to be a step behind when you're going against teams that can get better faster because they use players that have already been in the college football system that are better than other players. When people heard me say that Clemson is going to make the college football playoffs, I think they heard me say that they're going to be number one or something. I think there is light years in between Clemson and Georgia. I don't think both of those teams are necessarily close at all. I view Georgia as a juggernaut, a powerhouse. While Clemson has had that reputation for a while, I don't view them as a powerhouse anymore because they have been extremely slow to change with the times. So I feel it's an overreaction when people say that Clemson is going to be trash. They went up against the number one team in college football. I don't project them to be trash. Where I don't think the overreaction comes from is when people say why there's such a talent gap, and it showed. There should be no reason why a Clemson team should not be able to find the end zone against a Georgia. I'm not saying that they're going to beat a Georgia, but not even find the end zone. When I talked about Florida State and I talked about DJU, I said when there are times when you have to ask yourself, when is it time to pivot? And I feel if DJ does not get it together, it will be time to pivot very soon. A game like this, a game like Clemson and Georgia, should really force you to look yourself in the mirror if you're Dabo, if you're Clemson, and really make you think, okay, what I'm doing, something's not right. Because at no point, even when the game was 6-0, at no point did I think that Clemson had a shot of winning. And especially when that second half started, I think every single person that watched that game had no inkling that Clemson was going to come back. I'm not here to tell someone how to run their program. I'm not here to tell someone how to build and foster and grow their team. And I shouldn't, what I'm saying shouldn't be breaking news at this point. If last year wasn't an indication that something needs to change, and I'm not saying last year, seeing as though Clemson didn't have a good season, Clemson had an okay season. They didn't make the college football playoffs, but they did make a bowl game, which I don't even think they won. Clemson, for the last few years now, I'll say at least since losing Trevor Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence leaving to go to the NFL, it has seemed like Clemson is a step behind the top tier teams. It has always seemed that when they go up against a top tier team, a Georgia, Oklahoma, and Alabama, a Florida State, it seems like they have been a step or two behind. And I understand how difficult recruiting can be. You have to convince an individual, you have to convince an individual to leave their home amongst a sea of offers. You have to convince them to get to to come to your school, and try your hardest to allow or keep at bay their wandering eye and wandering ear. I understand how difficult that can be. The power of persuasion is difficult to obtain. But I can't help but think, you can feel how you feel about the transfer portal. Obviously, there are a lot of people that don't like the transfer portal. There's a lot of people that feel the transfer portal is being overused. There's a lot of people that think that the transfer portal is getting abused. And for that, I can say, okay, I understand where you're coming from, For the people that said that there needs to be major changes to the transfer portal, I can understand, and I second that. I don't think that it needs to be completely done away with, but I do think that there needs to be changes. But just like NILs, I understand that it is here. And as much as you can hate it, as much as you can despise it, teams are using the transfer portal as tools. If you don't believe me, look at Miami and Cam Ward. Miami, there was no excitement around Miami outside of the history of Miami these last few years. Cam Ward goes to Miami from the transfer portal, and now Miami is exciting after 1 week. They look drastically different offensively. Now, granted, they did play Florida, and Florida isn't the best right now. But Miami, there is a glimmer of hope, a bright glimmer of hope in Miami, because they effectively use the transfer portal. Look at all the top teams. Look at all of them. Georgia, filled with transfer portal players. Oregon, Dylan Gabriel. We'll talk about Oregon in a second, but Dylan Gabriel. In fact, pretty much that entire offense is transfer portal. Alabama, Miami. There's nothing wrong with wanting to stick with tradition at all. I commend anyone that wants to stick to tradition. But if you go to a gunfight, if you're in a gunfight or a draw, an old Western or whatever, if you're in an old Western and you have the duel, that's what it is, the duels. You have a duel. And you show up to a duel. One person shows up to a duel with a old Western revolver. And another person shows up to the duel with an M16. Who do you think has the advantage? I still think the revolver can get it done. But I'm sure that you have a much better advantage with an M16 than a revolver. That is essentially game after game after game what Dabo Swinney or Dabo is doing with his team. I'm not here questioning his coaching style. But what I'm here saying is what is clear as day, and what has been clear as day for a few years now. You're always going to be behind the 8 ball. You're always going to be a step slower than the crowd that you want to find yourself in if you don't adapt to the times. And adapting to the times is using the transfer portal. And if you want to continue to do what you're doing, well, you're going to continue to have games like you had against Georgia, where it was it was a complete mismatch. The only reason why it was 6-0, I believe, going into half is because Georgia their offense didn't wake up. But once it woke up, yeah. I'm not saying, again, I still stand by what I said. Clemson, I believe, is going to make the college football playoffs. But you never heard me say that they're going to be a top team or they're going to make a deep run in the playoff. I doubt that very seriously. Because there's a lot of teams that are close to Georgia that they would have to face. And, yeah. Speaking of teams that are close to Georgia, if you watched last episode, you know that I had Georgia and Oregon in the national championship. And I may have possibly let my fandom overtake me, but I don't care. I chose Oregon to make the college I picked Oregon to win the national championship. And I started this with saying that most teams pick a quote-unquote cupcake team to play their first week. They don't really want to dive into extremely difficult ranked team. There are occasions, but you're not going to get Clemson against Georgia. You're not going to get Notre Dame against Texas A&M like that. You're going to get them obviously, but not as much. You're usually going to get, Alabama against a Chattanooga or something like that. Well, it was thought that Oregon also went the cupcake route and chose a easier opponent to start their season with Idaho. And that game was everything but easy. Oregon won 24-14 or 24-14, I believe. It didn't look smooth at all. Outside of Dylan Gabriel threw for over 300 yards. He looked pretty good, but just everything didn't look great for Oregon, especially against a team that you expected to take off on. And a lot of people, especially with me saying that Oregon was going to win the national championship, a lot of people climbed into my mentions, climbed into my DMs, climbed into the comment section of the video talking about, did you just see Oregon? This is the Oregon team that you have winning the national championship. This team isn't even going to make the playoffs. This team ain't even nowhere close to Georgia. Hey. Let's put some things into perspective. Oregon lost a lot last year to the NFL, to graduation. Oregon lost a lot. 90% of their offense, they lost. And a lot of their defense, they lost as well. While no, I don't think that Idaho is a comparable opponent to Oregon. No, I can't say that I completely expected Oregon to struggle against Idaho. I thought, just like the world thought, just like probably people in Idaho thought, I thought Oregon was going to obliterate Idaho. But that's not what happened. And I'm not going to overreact to it. It's very difficult overreacting to a win, might I add. It's a win. Now, yes, I do think that there are things that Oregon for sure needs to clean up, and I think it's just game one. Now, game one is different for different people. I still, going back to Clemson in Georgia, I think that's a completely different type of game one because Georgia obliterated Clemson. And a lot of it was self-inflicted wounds as far as going back to the offseason when Dabo says he's not particularly touching the transfer portal. But this is a new team. Damn near a completely new team. I still think Oregon is going to be great. I still stand by Oregon's going to win the national championship. I just think, first of all, not every game is going to be a blowout. Again, yes, I thought it was going to be a rout. And it wasn't. But you have a new quarterback, new offense. Let teams figure. I think that is the overreaction that Oregon's not going to be good. Let the team figure it out. Because as we know, especially a team that is coached by Dan Lanning, they're going to get better and better and better and better. Yes, I would hope that you would beat. I would hope that you'd beat Idaho, which they did. They just didn't stomp on them like I thought they would. But let's not overreact to the current. The current is they're 1-0. Dylan Gabriel looked exceptional. And they still have improvement. There was a couple teams that struggled, like Michigan. Michigan struggled against, I don't remember who. But they struggled. Offensively, they struggled to get their offense going. Well, you better figure something out because you got Texas coming. And Texas looked all of what was projected for Texas. They destroyed that team. Man, we had Archie Manning doing the thumbs down. Man, look. Michigan better get right or they're going to get left. I think Oregon's going to be okay. Let's not overreact to one game that they won, by the way. Let's not overreact to one game. But I will say that it's going to take some time. Again, this is pretty much a new team. Again, about 90% of their offense is different from a year ago. So let's chill out with Oregon. I think I still stand, even if I'm wrong, I still stand by what I said that Oregon will win the national championship. I think they're going to look there once the season goes on and week after week, they're going to look better and better and better with more time, more experience, more cohesion to get. Yeah, they're going to look better. So let's just pump the brakes. Speaking of pump the brakes, in the last game that I want to talk about in this, what we saw week 1 of college football is USC coming back and beating LSU. Now, this game had arguably probably the one of the catches of the year. I still think, homie, I think it was Howard. I don't remember exactly the school, but the dude caught it in the air with one hand and like somersault or spun his body. I think it was Howard. That was an incredible catch. But I am completely down. I am completely out of LSU after this loss. And the thing is, it's not solely because of this loss. It's not solely because they lost to a ranked team, even though LSU was ranked higher. They lost to a ranked team in USC. They lost to a team that has Lincoln Riley, who is a good coach, coaching them. It's not just because this loss that I'm completely out on LSU. It's a culmination of things. This was just the cherry on top. Norvell, the coach of Florida State, when they lost, he did what you would expect a coach to do. Deflect blame from one player or two players and put it on him. That's what normal coaches do. Normal coaches usually say, it's on me. You see that a lot in basketball. Especially college basketball. You come in and then, I didn't have the team prepared enough to play. That's on me. That's usually what you get. And that's kind of what you expect from a coach. The last thing you want is to put the blame on somebody else, especially if you know that somebody else can't or doesn't have the capacity to withstand it. And looking at that LSU USC game, the issues that I've had with Brian Kelly and his tenure at USC or his tenure at LSU is the main reason why I am out on LSU. I'm not here saying that Brian Kelly is not a good coach. What Brian Kelly did at Notre Dame, of course, has to be commended. But Notre Dame is not LSU. The expectation level is different at Notre Dame than it is at LSU, especially when we talk about football. And at LSU, what are some issues? What are some gripes that we've heard about LSU's or the Brian Kelly era of LSU? They're undisciplined. He deflects blame. It's never really his fault, which is deflecting. It just seems like they're a step slow. The mistakes that they have, the mistakes that kill a team, LSU exudes all the time. Don't let Heisman winner Jaden Daniels fool you. There's a reason why LSU did not find themselves in the college football playoffs, even with the Heisman winner. And LSU was really good last year. There's a reason why almost every time Brian Kelly is in the news, it's about something cringeworthy now. LSU they were up, I think, 6 with like 7 minutes left. But bad penalty after bad penalty after bad penalty after bad penalty after bad penalty, all of which were on LSU. They essentially lost the game. And we've seen this multiple times with LSU, whether players players put themselves into situations that they shouldn't, whether we talk about taunting calls. The dude put the gun up, put the gun taunt. Like, what are we doing? The bad penalties, the undisciplined teams is exactly what Brian Kelly has had at LSU. Again, I know that we see what, Jaden Daniels, and shouts out for him, rightfully so, should have won the Heisman. And then on top of all that, he does not take accountability nearly at all. He doesn't seem genuine. I'm out. I think it was a big win for USC. I don't think that they're going to be necessarily good enough on defensively. Again, there was a lot of times in that game where LSU should have pulled away. They didn't. And it took a couple spectacular catches and a couple of bad breaks for LSU to essentially secure the win for USC. I think USC will get better. I just don't know how they'll fare, especially defensively, because LSU, they could have had their way offensively. It's just, But I'm out on LSU, man. I'm out. Because the same things that have plagued them the last few years under Brian Kelly reared its ugly head against USC in game 1. So we'll see. That was I'm not going to go over every game. I think that it was an incredible shouts out to a bunch of teams. Shouts out to Notre Dame for beating Texas A&M, going into Texas A&M and beating them. Shouts out to that. This was a really good week 1, and I'm excited to see what the season holds. Like I said, it's about to ramp up for a couple teams. Like I said, Michigan plays Texas this week. I think in 2 weeks, Oregon plays Ohio State. So I'm excited. But that's kind of the takeaways that I wanted to talk about from week 1 of the college football season. With the college football season, and with this being September 4th, meaning September 5th, tomorrow the season starts for the NFL, the official regular season, I gave my divisional breakdowns of every team in the NFL. I talked about some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses. I talked about exactly where I thought they would land this year in their division. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to rank the divisions. Now, again, I ranked all of them separately. If you want to go see, the episodes prior, you can go check out. I think I did 2 divisions a episode. If you want just to talk about that division, go to the episode. Shouts out. But I wanted to rank where I see all these divisions land and how I think all these divisions would play out. Obviously, number 1 being the best and number 8 being the last. There are good teams in every division. There are storylines in every division that make you think, oh, this could happen or that could happen. What I am saying is when you put all the divisions up against each other, these are the ones that I think are better than others. So I'm sure that there's going to be people in my comments saying, how do you have this division this low? Like, mind you, some of these divisions only have one or two good teams, and that definitely factors into where I have the divisions ranked. So let's start with the last one. Let's start with the bottom. In the bottom, I have the NFC South. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the New Orleans Saints. That's the Panthers and the Falcons. There's a good chance that every single one of these teams, those teams are not going to be that good. There's excitement, like there's definitely excitement in Atlanta, but I don't know if every one of those teams are going to exceed. Hell, the Panthers were the worst team last year, and they didn't really get marginally better. I think there are some positives that you can take from the division, but I just don't think when you stack that division up against the other 7, I don't think that they're great. So I have the NFC South as the worst division in football. Number 7, I have the NFC East. Now, whoa. You're probably saying, how does a team that is the Cowboys, how does a team that you have make it to the Super Bowl, or not make it to the Super Bowl, but that you possibly have that could make it to the Super Bowl in the Philadelphia Eagles, how was that the 7th best? Well, we don't know what we're going to get from the Cowboys, and usually the Cowboys have a really good season until it gets to the postseason. Philly has coming off a disastrous end to their season last year. So there's a lot, while, yes, there's a lot of promise, there's a lot of, with the players that they got, Saquon Barkley and everything, I don't know how this team will fare. I don't know if Nick Sirianni is a good coach. I don't know how good Jalen Hurts is without Jason Kelsey. All this will be revealed. So until then, and on top of that, I think the Giants have a chance to be one of the worst teams in football because of their quarterback. And as much as I love the Washington Commanders, there's still a question mark. So I just don't know with this division. I could be too low. It is what it is. But I just think that the NFC East is going to be, has the potential to be not that good. There's a lot more question marks with the NFC East than things that you know. And here's probably where the controversy will really get going. At number 6, I have the AFC West. Whoa. I hear you. I see you. I hear you. And I see you start tapping. Wait a second, Jalen. How is the AFC West the 6th worst division in your opinion? Like, or the 6th best division in your, they have the Kansas City Chiefs. That could possibly three-peat. True. But outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, what else do they have? They have the Raiders that cannot, you think that Gardner Minshew is going to take them from obscurity. No. You got the Chargers that just gutted their damn near entire team, and they weren't good enough with their team. So we'll see. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be an incredible coach, and I think that they're going to be able to turn it around, but we don't know. And we also don't know, which I just talked about 2 episodes ago. I don't know how good Justin Herbert really can be. We know he has glimpses of talent, but, and then who else? You have the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Chiefs, Raiders. That's easy. Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, and the Broncos that is about to trot out Bo Nix as their starting quarterback. No offense to Bo Nix, Oregon, but that team is not good. So outside of the Chiefs, they don't really have much greatness. They have potential, but they don't have much greatness. So, yes, I have them as the 6th best division, the AFC West. The team that is holding the two consecutive time champion right now. AFC West is the 6th best team. Then I have the AFC South. Now, whoa, I hear it again. All the people click-clacking. You have the Texans, you have the Colts, you have the Jaguars, and you have the Titans. there's a lot of people that think that the Texans. There's a lot of people that I didn't realize it was this many people. There's a lot of people that have the Texans going to the Super Bowl. I will say that the Texans are probably the number one team that just nailed it in the offseason, getting Stephon Diggs, getting Danielle Hunter, all the pieces that they got. They are going to be incredible. If they have given CJ Stroud an ample amount of weapons to make that leap, and he doesn't need to make that big of a leap because he was great his first year. On top of that, I think there's a lot of excitement in Indianapolis getting Anthony Richardson back. He missed most of the season last year. I think he's going to be good. You still have Zaire Franklin there. You still have DeForest Buckner. Jaguars, they retooled. Now, obviously, kind of like the Chargers and Justin Herbert, we need to see how good Trevor Lawrence can be, because Trevor Lawrence had a bunch of pieces last year and still found himself amongst the league leaders in interceptions. But, you got a squad, man. And the Titans have a good team. They just don't have that good. We don't know how good Will Levis is. So I think there's better teams in the South than there is the AFC West. Now, again, I think the best team out of those two divisions obviously is the Chiefs, but outside of them, it gets a little dicey about who you want to rank there. So I have the AFC South over the AFC West. So the AFC South is the fifth best team. Then I have the AFC East. I have the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots. Now, there's no secret that I am not high on the Patriots. That's just how it is. The Patriots ain't gonna be that good. But I can see, there's a lot of promise, a lot of potential, and there's a lot of expectation for the Jets. Same thing for the Dolphins. And the Bills, you still have arguably one of the best quarterbacks in football in Josh Allen on that team. So I think the AFC East, I potentially have the Jets getting as close as possible to the Super Bowl. I think they could get to the conference championship. I don't know. But I have the AFC East as the fourth best. Then I have the NFC West. The NFC West, you have the Arizona Cardinals, the Rams, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. I understand that quarterback-wise, and every division has that bottom feeder. Like I said, the AFC West, they have, I think, the Broncos probably. NFC East, you have the Giants. I think for the NFC West, it's going to be the Cardinals. Now, they have Marvin Harrison Jr., they have Kyler Murray, but I just don't think they're going to be that good. But I do think Seattle has sneaky one of the best rosters in football. Matthew Stafford with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Kyron Wood, they're going to be extremely good. And then you have arguably year after year after year the best roster in football. And it seems like that they're close to working out a deal with Trent Williams as we record this. I have the NFC West. They have three teams that could make a case of going deep into the playoffs. So I have them. Then I have the NFC North. The NFC North, bro. When we're talking about the Bears, the Lions, the Packers, and Vikings, there's a lot of expectation, in my opinion, for the Bears, the Vikings, and the Green Bay Packers. There's people that have the Bears making it to the conference championship. I think with Caleb Williams, with DJ Moore, with Keenan Allen, with Swift, the players that they have, they're going to be extremely good. A lot of it, obviously, is contingent on Caleb Williams blossoming, but I think they're going to be good. There is true Super Bowl aspirations for the Lions and the Green Bay Packers, and the Vikings are, I think their season is pretty much over with the injury of J.J. McCarthy, but they're going to be good. I think that this is an extremely competitive division. Again, you have two teams at least that you can say, at least in the NFC, are Super Bowl contenders. So that's the NFC North, and it should be no question what the number one, in my opinion, what the number one division is. That's the AFC North. Ravens, Bengals, Browns, Steelers. There's good analysts that think that this entire division has a shot of making it to the playoffs. There's people that have last year, the Ravens were the best team in football until they went up against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. You have arguably the best defense in the Browns and the Steelers. You arguably have the best wide receiver duo in Jamar Chase, if he gets his deal, and T. Higgins. You have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. This is the best division by far, the AFC North, in my opinion. Those are my rankings for the divisions. Let me know what you think. I'm sure there's people that's going to say I'm wrong. I respect it. Let me know what you think. And, those are my divisional ranks. I don't think there's any division really close to the AFC North, honestly. So, and lastly, before we go, we have a game on Thursday. We have the Chiefs, the rematch, I'll say, of the AFC Championship, the Chiefs and the Ravens. The Ravens this time going to Arrowhead and playing the Chiefs. I hear people like Nick Wright, TV analysts are saying that this is a monumental game for Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens. There's a lot of people, including myself, that thought that the Ravens were better than the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, and if they would have stuck to the game plan that got them that record, that got them to the AFC Championship, that got them to the best record in football for an extended amount of time in the AFC, that there was a good shot that they could and should have won against the Chiefs, but they didn't. But honestly, I'm not one of those people that think that this is a make or break game for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think this is an important game because you're going up against a team that you've struggled with, a team that just beat you to prevent you from going to the Super Bowl. And I think Nick Wright, to his credit, did put up that Lamar Jackson has struggled with, I think, 3 teams in his entire football career. That is the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Titans, I think. So I think it's important to establish that, oh no, this is I'm good. I'm not saying you have to win, but you have to look apart. It's still game one, and Lamar Jackson said it. Most of the Ravens said it. Game one doesn't mean that it's not the Super Bowl. It's game one. If they lose game one, it's a very good possibility that they could find themselves again in the AFC Championship, going against the same team that beat them. I do think that it is important to establish how they're going to look with Derrick Henry, and I think that Derrick Henry has a good shot of propelling this Ravens offense, especially running the ball, to heights that they haven't seen. But I just don't think it's make or break like people are saying. It's an important game anytime you're, the first game of the season, anytime your box office, you have Lamar Jackson going against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I think that it's a big game. I think the Chiefs are going to win. There's a lot that the Ravens have to figure out on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, you still have Kyle Hamilton. Yes, you still have Roquan Smith. You still have Kyle Van Noy, Justin Madubuike. Incredible players. But they did lose a lot. You lost a lot on the back end of your defense. You lost your Davion Clowney. You lost Patrick Queen. We need to see how they fare against top tier competition, especially competition that likes to throw the ball. But so I probably think the Chiefs will win. And I do think Lamar Jackson has to look good. I think the Ravens have to look good, but I don't think this is a make or break game like people are saying. Especially seeing as though it was just game one. So, but we'll see. I'm excited. Oh man, I'm excited. NFL season is back. I'm excited. I'm excited. And there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to reach as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all you guys. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It means a lot. Also, please subscribe to the DSPs. If you do listen to me on DSPs, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you listen, please follow. It means so much to me. No platform is more important than the other, so wherever you get the Unpopular Podcast, please follow. Also, please follow the socials. Follow Instagram, follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily. That's where we can debate, go back and forth. You keep it respectful. I don't mind going. It means that you listen to me and you care about how you feel, care about whatever topic. So, Instagram, TikTok, please follow. I appreciate you guys, and until next time, much love.